Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Meds and Magic. It's me, your girl, Samantha, and I am here with the lovely Kofi. She's going to share her story. I had such a great time talking with Kofi about her journey, about the importance of sharing the journey. So, you guys are in for a treat. Literally, uh a mother of two, right? She knew she wasn't fighting just for her. She was fighting for her kids. And literally she overcame two diagnoses, two victories. Her journey is a story of faith mixed with meds and science and the kind of courage for generations. Thank you, Kofi, for being that chick. Thank you. Kofi, tell us a little bit about transport us back to, I guess, the first time that you were diagnosed with cancer. Like, where were you in your life? What was going on? Yeah, take us back.
So the first time was in 1998.
Hmm.
I was 26, had just graduated from college, HU, you know.
Whoop, whoop.
I had just graduated, moved to Atlanta, Georgia, started teaching. I was in a really great relationship at the
Yeah.
time. I was just starting my career. Everything was going great. I literally went to homecoming and, had the crop top shirts on,
Mhm.
having a great time at homecoming.
Super cute.
And I came back and I discovered that I had this lump that was right about in here around my neck. And so I didn't think anything of it. And so I was like, I'll go to the doctor. And then it started bothering me.
Yeah.
And so I went to my doctor and so she started asking me questions about cancer in my family. And I'm thinking, like,
Mm.
why is she asking me these questions? I just have kind of a lump. Like, it's
Yeah.
probably just a lymph node, not even a lymph node, it's probably just a cyst or something like this.
Mhm.
And I didn't notice it at all during homecoming. So I feel like it grew like out
Like
of nowhere,
overnight.
like overnight. And so she was like, "Well, I think that you should go." She referred me to another specialist doctor.
Okay.
And so when I got to that doctor just started asking me about my cancer history. And as I'm sitting there and I'm telling the doctor about the fact that my grandmother died of cancer, and at the time I thought it was liver, and I was like, hmm. And then my cousin on my mother's other side, he had cancer, and his father died of cancer, and his mother died of cancer, which was my grandmother's sister. And as I'm telling the story, the doctor's face is starting to get more and more
Mhm.
like concerned, and I'm
Concerned.
looking like, wait a minute, should
Yeah.
I be concerned? And so she said, "Well, I'm not sure. Let's send you for some scans." So I go and I get some scans. And I'm a person who had never been in the hospital before.
I was just getting ready to say, what was your experience before then? Like, were you
I had
sickly kid or like, nah?
no, I'd never really, I don't even remember much going to an emergency room. Or if I did, it was something, just a scrape or something like
Mhm.
that. But, doctor's offices, I've been a pretty healthy person, most of my life. And so, get the scans or whatever. And I remember the guy who was taking the scans, I kind of saw his face and he didn't know I saw his face. And so I started kind of asking questions like, oh, well, the doctor will will talk to you, like, they have to read it and that kind of thing, don't worry about it, that kind of thing. So I'm like, okay. So we come back. I think the doctor may have called me maybe 2 days later, a couple of days later,
It's a quick one.
and went into the doctor's office. And to be honest, I don't remember a whole lot that was said except you have cancer.
Did you go by yourself?
The boyfriend that I had at the time went with me.
Okay.
Yes, he went with me from what I recall.
Okay.
Um, and I think that's always a good thing is to have someone in a space with you
Yeah.
because your
Because clearly
emotion.
you were like, I just heard one thing. I don't know what
I
the rest of that visit was.
I don't remember how I got home. I don't remember any of that. And so the first person I called was my mother. And I remember my mother listening to what I said. And then she was like, "Okay, I will call you back." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Did I not tell her what I just?" She didn't hear what I said. And the next thing you know, my grandmother calls me. And my grandmother not only calls me, but, like, she's praying with me. She was an adopted grandmother.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "So mommy told you?" And she was like, "Yes." And that let me know my mother just knew I'm not in a right space right now, but let me get you what you need in this
Yeah.
moment, like someone, to talk to
Yes.
you in this moment.
Yes. Your mom had to process. She was just like, I love that.
Yeah. She knew she needed a moment
Yeah.
to process. And then once, she began to process and then we started going into, okay, what is next? And at the time, like I said, I was living here in Georgia. This was probably about April of 98. So I was like close to the end of my school year.
Mhm.
And so we made the decision for me to move back to New Jersey so that my mom and my stepdad and my grandma, like I would have family and community that was there that could really support me through it, and my dad. And so, but you can just imagine, I was 26 years old. I didn't know many 26-year-olds that had had cancer.
Do you what so tell us what the diagnosis was. Like what
Um,
type of
I had I had what was called Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the cousin that I was telling you about, which was my grandmother's sister's son,
Mhm.
um, he was diagnosed with the same cancer I ended up being diagnosed with, what, 26 years later, because I was being born in the hospital next door when he was getting chemo for that very same cancer. And so here we were 26 years later, and sidebar to that, his cancer had come back at this same
At the
time. So
same
our family was dealing
time.
with it at the same time.
So when they were explaining to you sort of, okay, this is Hodgkin's lymphoma, did they say this is hereditary? This is the prognosis? Like what was your at the time, what was your sort of relationship with your caregivers? I mean, were they kind of helpful informing you or you just like don't remember?
There's a lot that I don't remember. I do know that at the time we weren't fully connecting the cancers,
Okay.
right? We
Okay.
weren't fully connecting it. We weren't there yet. We were
Okay.
in like, how do we
Yeah.
what do we do for Kofi?
Yes.
And so at the time I remember, my mom, they found me one of the best hospitals up in New Jersey. Shout
Mhm.
out to Robert Wood Johnson, which
Mhm.
was my mom's thing, was that she wanted me to be at a research teaching
Yes.
hospital so that she knew that they would be ahead of the curve,
Mhm.
right? And also this hospital just happened to be around the corner from where my father lived as well. So he could come over there and sit with me during my treatments. And so we made a decision to do um, a real aggressive
Okay.
type of chemo. It's called ABVD. I can't remember the
Mhm.
names of each one of those,
Mhm.
which meant that the impact would be quick
Yes.
and hard.
I literally just had a conversation with someone who said they strong cancer. It's like you get the strong cancer or the other type, which the strong cancer is let's knock it out the park. The hair's gone, the immune system demolished. Like it's just really hard on the body. But a lot of times with aggressive cancers, that's the like recommendation.
Yeah, and especially because I was young, they felt like, let's go at it hard.
Yeah.
There's already some forms of cancer in your background,
Mhm.
so let's do that. So yeah, definitely. And so we went through the treatments, and then I remember, and this is important, I think, for women to know about
Yeah.
advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
I started with a particular oncologist, and he gave me one date of when we would be finished with the chemo. And so that was the date we had planned. Like, we were gonna buy a cake, we was gonna say our goodbyes, all that kind of stuff. Well, somewhere in the middle of my treatment, that doctor ended up leaving, and I had another doctor that came in. And the first doctor was an Indian doctor, the second one was a white doctor.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like that second doctor understood enough about me as
Mhm.
a Black woman, and
Mhm.
but, I think he was doing the best that he felt like
Yeah.
for his patient, and so he made a decision to extend it, and he was like, "We're just gonna give it," and I was like, "So, are we giving more chemo because you think there's more cancer?" "No, I just wanna be sure." "Well, we not gonna do, like, 2 more rounds just because you wanna be sure."
Curious.
And
Yeah.
so, we as a family decided, and I'll never forget the date, we were, like, on I think it was, like, October 18th, this is my last day,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I remember him still kind of feeling some kinda way and
Right.
operating in some kinda way, but
Right.
I had to advocate for
You
myself,
did.
and I was glad that I did, and
Yeah.
so, then I did the chemo. I finished chemo and I did radiation,
Mhm.
and then by that December, I was able to move back to Atlanta,
Atlanta. Okay.
to
Did
restart.
so I really wanna hone in on that advocacy piece because I feel like so many women, especially women that look like us, Black and brown, beautiful queens, they don't feel like they can, speak up for themselves, and they don't oftentimes feel seen or heard or ready. And so, what would you say helped you to listen to sort of your gut instinct and stand up for yourself?
Number 1, my faith was huge with that, but I know sometimes that can feel intangible to people, right?
Mhm.
But my faith was huge, and we were
Okay.
believing for this date, and
Okay.
the scans were also affirming that.
Yes.
So, I wasn't going against, like, medical,
Right.
advice just willy-nilly. But the other thing was that my mother was an attorney. And my
Hmm.
mother was a learner, and my mother was the type of person that she was gonna research about
Mhm.
everything, she was gonna learn about it, she could tell you all the names of the drugs, what they did, and how long, and so, and also community. I wasn't making decisions just by myself.
Yeah.
I was making them within community, and, my
Mhm.
dad was like, "No, I think you should continue to take it," and,
Yeah.
so we all had to have this conversation, but I think my mother probably gave me the most confidence and really the whole time was trying to empower me, even though I'm
Mhm.
this 26-year-old young woman,
Yeah.
her child still in her eyes, she still was trying to give me autonomy and teach me self-efficacy.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. As you're talking, I feel I feel her presence. Like I feel like this woman who is like, "No, I'm going to question things cuz asking questions is not a bad thing, right? I'm going to interrogate. I'm going to research and dig in." Like that is powerful and I feel like for so many of us that type of, that type of empowered way of thinking might have been like squashed, right? It may have seemed like you being disrespectful, right?
Mhm.
Or you thinking too highly of yourself, and it literally stripped us of that power. And I'm so grateful that you had her in your corner, and even your what you said, your dad, like coming with, actually, I'm thinking this, but not in a way that made you feel like you have to do this. Your way is wrong and my way is right. But there was this space, and I always tell people community should feel like this healing space where what's welcome is these different point of view, but at the base of it, the support is there, regardless of
Mhm.
how people are what people are bringing to the conversation. So those are the two things that stood out to me just now, and I love that you had that for sure.
Mhm. 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 And I think that once I came back to Atlanta, it was community that helped me to transition back.
Yeah.
Because that cousin that I talked about maybe a couple weeks after I got back passed away.
Mm,
And so for my family, it was this really hard time. Like, we want to celebrate the fact Kofi's back and she made it, but at the same time, we lost him as well.
yeah.
And so,
Hmm.
and then it kind of re-triggered me
Mhm.
of like, is this gonna come back for me right now? Like, what are those kind
Yeah.
of things? And so I always say that healing starts during the process of the fight, but
Yeah.
the real healing begins after.
Yes. I've heard that so many times before. What I want to know for you is in between the first diagnosis and the second diagnosis, what did that healing journey look like? Were you like, all right, I mean, because you're still young, like these are like peak, like people just out here partying and just like, staying up all night. Da, 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 da. Like, did you now was like, okay, no, I can't do all that. I gotta sleep. I gotta take care of myself. Like, what did that look like?
No, I think that would've been great. Well,
You're so
initially, honestly,
young.
initially, it probably took me about 2 full years maybe to even get my energy back
Yeah.
up fully, because I was still a teacher working, but initially, I would work, regular teacher day and come home and go to sleep till the next day. Like, initially, it took my body a while to really build back up my stamina.
Yeah.
But then I continued on with life. Like,
Yeah.
I enjoyed having natural hair, this was by now we're into the early 2000s, it's the neo soul look, and so, now I had natural hair.
I love
Um,
it. I was an
yeah, I was
early
just
adopter
enjoying
as well.
right. So, I was really just enjoying life, like,
Yeah.
I was really enjoying life. Um, I almost feel like I shut that chapter of that book and moved on completely.
Mhm.
Like, it
Mhm.
didn't really come up. At the time, I did start, writing a book at the time,
Okay.
but I it was more of during that time and what I was feeling, but then I put that in a
Yeah.
notebook and moved on with life.
Yeah.
And so and in between that, um, my mother ended up not even in between that. I came back that December, my mother found out she had breast cancer maybe by that January, February
Wow. That was
of the next
really
year.
yeah.
And so then I came back to walk with her through it. And so that's why we always said we became comrades in the fight against
Mhm.
cancer.
Mhm.
And then she ended up getting ovarian cancer later. This was later on. This was maybe 3 years before I got breast cancer. And that was around the time when we found out because of my mother. My mother suggested I go get genetically
Okay.
tested.
When she got diagnosed with, um, breast cancer.
When she got diagnosed with breast cancer, she kinda went on this, like, building a family tree and learning more
Mhm.
about her mother's cancer, her aunt's cancers, like, where is this coming from in our
Mhm.
family? But
Mhm.
then, we moved past that. It really wasn't until she got ovarian,
Cancer that she was like
um
that
yeah.
investigator came out. She like, "No, there's some patterns
Yes.
here."
Yeah, some patterns that are here, and when she went back to find out that's why family history is so important. We thought my grandmother had passed away of liver cancer, but in actuality, she had passed away of ovarian cancer. So now we found out this is a generational thing
Yeah.
that is happening in our family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so
So
then that's when I got genetically tested.
I was getting ready to say, so bef you got genetically tested before you got diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mhm,
So tell us how old were you? You literally had you already had your own personal um cancer story. Your mom is now like 2 times
mhm.
dealing with it, and you're walking right there beside her, and then you get tested and bam, you see the genes?
Yeah, I was probably around 35
30.
because my oldest, was just born around that time.
Okay.
And, when I moved back here, I ended up getting I started, with an oncologist that was my cousin's oncologist. He was a
Okay.
black man
Mhm.
and well known,
Yeah.
and, he had told me that I should consider getting, tested.
Yeah.
But he was saying, "If you're not willing to do anything about it, wait until after you have children."
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You know what I like that first of all, did you seek out sort of cuz in our communities a lot of times we have this sort of like historical mistrust. with the healthcare system and providers. So, were you intentional about seeking out like Black and Brown providers, like, with reputations of a certain caliber? Were you intentional about that?
Honestly, I wasn't. I think being in Atlanta, that's just, I
That's a
mean, that's not, yeah, and it's not hard to find that, right? My oncologist, it just so happened that that was not only my cousin's oncologist, but it was his father's oncologist. And so he just knew our family and
yes,
knew our story.
yes.
And so I think that was what
That
was
was
most
the
important to me.
yeah.
Yeah, that was really what was most important to me. And so once I got tested and we knew that I carried both genes, I carried ovarian, which is BRCA1, and BRCA2, breast cancer. So I carried both genes. And so, but he was like, if you're not willing to do anything radical about it,
Yeah.
like potentially have a full hysterectomy and double mastectomy, then go have children and let's talk about it afterwards.
Okay. How did you feel
And
about that? Like, did you know that that was sort of the or this was news to you? Like, oh, like the
it
whole
was news.
radical proactive
I
the
was like, what? You asking me to do what? Like that's what people do.
people do
So I
that?
was actually happy he said wait until you after you have kids because that kind of gave me some time, right? And so once I had my son, um, then I was like, okay, this might be the time. Let me go and
Okay.
talk to him. And that's when we had the conversation about it. And so I remember asking him, what would he do? And I was like, tell me if I was your wife, because right
Mhm.
now we're only going based on a prognosis, not a
Right. You do not
diagnosis yet.
have any
I don't have anything. And so he was like, I would have told you have it taken out after you had your son. And by this point, my son was probably 2, 3 years old.
wow.
And so I was like, okay.
Okay.
So we moved forward with the full hysterectomy.
You I want to break this down a little bit because you had this established relationship with this provider, which I love. Like the trust was there. You had peace with no he came to you and say what you said, what would you do if I was your wife, if I was your daughter, right? That's the type of relationship that I feel like no matter if what color, right? We talk about that helps sometimes with some people, finding people that look like them, but the relationship really is the piece. Because these are some big decisions, right? These are some big scary things. And so that piece I want to make sure that people listen, listen, listen. Like your relationship with the provider is therapeutic. That is
Mhm.
part of your healing journey is your relationship with these providers, your healthcare team. I mean, this is gold. I'm just sitting here basking in the fact that y'all had these like conversation, this very vulnerable, but straightforward conversation. And you felt comfortable where you're like, okay, like you didn't just shut them out. You did like you were open
Yeah.
to this
And what
radical
was
thing.
I mean, and what was hard is like when you're talking about a hysterectomy and a potential double mastectomy, right? As a woman, you're talking about everything that defines you as a woman,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Whether I had children again, those are the things that
Yeah.
people know you are a woman,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And so this wasn't very easy and it was a time it was hard, really hard for me because at this point my mother wasn't alive anymore.
Mm.
She had passed away
Oh,
maybe a
how
couple
long
of
before?
years.
2 years?
Let me see. My mom passed in 2011 and I had got diagnosed in 2013. So it wasn't that long before, and she was my comrade, like, she was my
Yes.
person, she was the person I would have asked, we would have talked about, we would have researched this, we would have found out about it, and I'm like, "What would she say?" I have no idea what would my mother say, and so the hysterectomy wasn't an easy decision either. I did go, the oncologist referred me to an ovarian oncologist
Okay.
because I still wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Like, if I do this, what does it mean? I don't have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
And so I
And it
went
and
to
it
this
has trickle down effects, like
Right.
putting you in early menopause, right? And hormonal deficiencies, right? So, yeah, you needed to know for sure.
And I'm like, I don't know what, that, everybody uses the word menopause, perimenopause.
Right.
In 2013, we still didn't even know how to spell it,
Yeah, exactly.
right? We still was trying to figure out how to spell it. And so, and we couldn't believe that, like, we gonna be going into like that wasn't even a thing. We still in
Yes,
our
there it
30s.
is.
Yeah, that's long. That's 20 years from now.
Exactly.
And so I went to the ovarian oncologist, and I will say he was a black man as well. And that was intentional. I wanted someone who would understand me as a black woman, not just wanting to cut on me, not just wanting, just telling me automatically, like, go ahead and get it taken out. And so, and I was trying to decide, did I want a full? Did I want a partial?
Oh, yep.
Right, because I wanted to keep my ovaries, but that is the thing that I really needed to take out, right? And so, I went to him and I talked to him, and I just remember the statistic he gave me. He said, "If you make the decision to take it out, your there's an 85% less chance that you will get ovarian cancer."
Wow. That's huge. That's huge. So that stuck in your mind as like, all right, this made the decision a lot.
And I asked him again. I asked him the same
Same
question. I
question.
said, if this was your wife, your
Mhm.
auntie, your mama, your daughter, he said, I would tell him to have a full hysterectomy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so that meant that helped to put me into the space. And I was kind of like, okay, well,
And this
I,
is again, I just want to highlight you have no cancer at this point.
I have no cancer at this point. So we are still basing on a prognosis and a gene decision. So the potential
The
of
potential one day.
maybe
But your
one day.
mom had already passed. She had already
And we knew
had
at this point
over.
my grandmother. We knew my grandmother as well.
Yep. You had 2 generations. You
Mhm.
got your mom 2 times, right? What was the first one? Breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So, you had a lot of data that you were in super risky, super high risk, and you had cancer before. Do you also have the same sort of community support in decision making like you had the first time with this?
It's so interesting that you would say that. Yes and no.
Okay.
It was pretty much a decision with my husband and I.
Okay.
However, one thing I learned through both of them is community may look different for you, meaning that the people sometimes you think will be there may not, and the people that you never would have thought would. And I learned in both of those times, everybody can't handle the entire journey.
Ooh,
That's important to know.
it is.
And it's no, and it could feel very personal and it
Mhm.
can feel like people weren't there for you.
Yeah.
But I learned everybody can't handle every part of the journey. Some people can handle the diagnosis, some people can handle the chemo, some people not going to come around until after it's all over.
That is so good, Kofi. Like, I never even like, even as you're saying it, it rings true because I know sometimes people can feel so lonely and feel like taking it personal, right? But you gotta think too, like, people's capacity, like, what they can handle. So how did that show up for you? Like, how did you come to that?
So I have 2 different short little
Uh-huh.
examples. So, my sister, right? My stepfather, I share a sister through my stepfather.
Mhm.
And when I went through it the first time, she was a hairdresser at the time. And so I would go to her house to get my hair done. Now, at the time, my hair was starting to fall out, which is part of the reason I didn't go to a hairdresser
Mhm.
anymore. And so she would wash my hair. I didn't find this out 2 years later. After she would wash my hair, she would go upstairs and cry because she would see the clumps, but she couldn't,
She didn't.
it was a lot, right?
Yeah.
So that's how she supported me the first time. The second time, she wasn't living here, she was living in Jersey. We didn't talk a whole lot during the whole time I had cancer. But when it was over, or I was still continuing in my healing, I remember calling her and I was riding down Camp Creek, and I just started screaming, and I was crying, and I said probably every word that I can't even remember, and she just sat and listened, and she said,
Mm,
"I was waiting for the moment when this would happen." And it was my final moment of not having to be strong,
yeah.
not having to keep it all together, not having to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And she was there in that moment. Now, I could have
To
felt some
hold
kind
it.
of way because she wasn't there during the cancer
Mhm.
treatments and all of
Mhm.
that, but she was there when I needed her.
Oh my gosh. I got like the chill bumps because like I feel that like you said, you could have held on to this notion of like you were supposed to be there. I'm thinking about 11 basketball. You were supposed
Right.
to be there.
Exactly. Exactly. Everybody can't handle it.
Showing
Everybody can't handle it.
and being and you saying, okay, you here now. You holding space now. I'm gonna be vulnerable and give it to you. You know, I'm not gonna hold nothing against you. I'm out for my healing.
And I think that was what was different the second time, um, is that and that didn't happen until after I had my chemo and everything. We're still at,
Yeah,
like, when I
right.
haven't even gotten diagnosed, but was being open to that, and I say that because another girlfriend who hadn't been there the first time, and I really was feeling some kinda way about that,
Uh-huh.
and we were still friends, and she had moved to Atlanta, and so when I was trying to decide if I should have a double mastectomy, she came and picked me up in her convertible Mercedes, and she took me to this vodka bar in Buckhead that no longer exists, and she bought me 3 shots, and she said to me, "What I am not gonna do is sit with your children and tell them about the fact that you had an opportunity to make a decision to live, and you chose not to." And she took a shot, and, that kinda helped me to make my decision.
All right then. Like the fact we just allowing those people in our lives that show up in all the different kind of ways and what you needed for one point is not necessarily what you needed for another and you just being open to it all. I love that, girl. Oh my gosh. So was after that was after you were diagnosed with breast cancer? This is
No.
Oh,
This was just after I had already had the hysterectomy, and
huh?
now I was making a decision about whether or not to have the double mastectomy.
Gotcha.
And so the
Got
double mastectomy was a lot harder because 'cause I'm like, "All right,
yes.
hysterectomy, I'm not having no more kids. That's
Right.
fine."
It's on the
You know what I
inside.
mean? Yeah, that's fine. Like, I can still do what I need to do, right? But my breast was a whole
That's the
'nother
whole
story. And, that was my thing. I prided myself on my breasts, and so I made the decision to have the double mastectomy. Well, when I went to my surgeon, once again, a black man, a Nigerian black man, he found the lump.
So, okay, where after you got the total hysterectomy, how long before you were planning to get the double mastectomy? What time frame are we looking at?
So I had the hysterectomy in April because I did it during my spring break.
Okay.
And then by May, I was
Okay.
starting to move forward with the decision for the double mastectomy. And so I went to his office for my first, initial appointment, and he felt something. He said, "I think you need to go get a mammogram,"
Okay.
literally that day.
Wow.
So I went and got a mammogram, and by the next day, I found out I had cancer.
It's cancer. And you're 35, right?
At this point, yeah, I'm somewhere around like 35, 36, somewhere around that
Yeah. So
age. And
basically I want to like before you're getting regularly screened for breast
yeah, I
yeah.
had yeah, like, I was getting probably yearly mammograms
Mhm.
like anybody, and
Yes.
especially because actually, I had started getting them earlier because of the
Because of
history in my family, and so I was getting them on a yearly basis, and so what we found out was the cancer that I was diagnosed with and had is the very cancer I carried the gene for.
oh my gosh. So for you, that probably made your decision even more like clear, right? Or tell me, because it's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer probabilities. you know?
Yeah.
How were you
Um,
feeling?
it made the decision easier, but I felt a lot of guilt. I felt like, "Why didn't I know sooner? I should have made this decision a whole lot sooner."
Dang.
Yeah.
Yo, why
Uh-huh.
we so hard on ourselves?
Right. I really did. I felt like I should have made this decision because I started thinking back to when the oncologist said, "I would have had this after your
After
son."
your baby was born and all of
Right.
that.
And I quickly released that.
Good, good,
But
good.
initially,
Yeah,
you're scared. You don't
yeah,
know what's going on. And this was an aggressive
yeah,
cancer.
yeah.
Um, the type that I had, and it's specifically, and unfortunately I can't remember the name of it right now, but it specifically happens with Black women,
Okay,
this
gotcha.
particular cancer. And also, which is why I was so grateful that my doctor had already talked about these radical types of methods,
Mhm.
because a lot of times as Black women, number one, we're not always going to the doctor like we should.
Yeah.
We don't always have access to doctors, to proper medical care. And then three, having the best doctors that would know to tell you to do some radical things. But then the fourth thing is,
Exactly.
yeah, like, but also at the time, I didn't know any Black women that was having mastectomies. All I knew was Angelina Jolie, and she was a white rich woman.
Right. Right, exactly. Like we just didn't you spelled it out perfectly because there's so many barriers along the way and for your specific case to have you really needed somebody to like lean in hard and be aggressive and be early, like on top and proactive. And that just oftentimes, unfortunately, doesn't happen in our communities. And we're the ones that need it because we are more susceptible, like you say, to these aggressive types of cancers that are often more fatal, right? For us.
Mhm.
My
And typically they're more fatal for us, not even because we get it more, but because we don't have enough information or people who look like us. And then there's also the cultural thing of like,
yeah,
we don't talk about that.
yeah.
We keep our business to ourselves. And I also knew of a family friend whose sister had the opportunity and made the decision not to have a mastectomy based on vanity. She just couldn't see herself not
Mm,
having her
heavy.
breast. And I
And what was
remember when
her
she
result?
passed. She passed. She literally passed away because, and I mean, I give honor to her
Yeah.
decision.
Right, right.
But I do remember as she was transitioning, she wished she had changed
Yeah,
her
what you
mind
were saying.
earlier. And that was why it was so important for me. Like, I wish I knew, like, what would my mother do? What would my
Yeah.
mother do? And what I remember, and this is where my faith comes in, I had a dream.
Mm,
And in the dream, God reminded me of a conversation I had with my mother when she was transitioning.
mm,
And she said to me, if I had known, I would have had all of this taken out.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I knew
yeah.
this is the decision that
This
I
is the
should make.
decision you should make. And even as I'm hearing about your mom and learning about her through you and your stories, I'm like, oh yeah. Like her personality, if she had all that information,
Mhm.
she would make
And
a
she
highly
made sure.
educated decision.
Oh, absolutely. If she would have had the decision, absolutely. And so I went through that. And I say what I am grateful for is that I got to do what my grandmother and mother didn't have the opportunity to do. So I didn't get to not do it. Like, it to me was my honoring and breaking the generational pattern that was happening in our family, because I had more information, had more access to make better decisions, to live so that my kids prayerfully don't have to go through the same.
Okay. I just want to pause. You're taking me through right now. We having church. Because literally, I think this is the blending of the meds and magic. The reason for this show is this integrative approach, this soulful, spiritual, physical, like it all informs everything. And the fact that, I grew up in church, PK, preacher's kid. A lot of people have heard my story. Literally, the idea of breaking a generational curse by being like, I'll do it.
Mhm.
I will do this radical, highly medical, scientific thing because my mom and my grandma didn't have the opportunity, to me is miraculous.
Yeah.
It is
Mhm.
miraculous. And I think sometimes we get so boxed in on what we think miracles look like, what we think, you know, God speaking to us, like you saying, bringing that to your remembrance. Like, let's integrate it all. Let's use it all and use everything to our disposal to make decisions that align and you feel at peace with, right? Girl.
And I felt like I remember someone saying to me, I was praying, I was like, I want my daughter to be the curse breaker of this. I want my daughter to be the curse breaker of this. And the person said to me, "Why not you?" Yeah, why not you? And so I believe the decisions that I made
Mhm.
um, were opportunities to break those curses for my daughter and her children and the children afterwards, because now we have a better picture of our generational health.
Yes.
Um, we have models and examples of decisions that, can be made for it. And so I think that um, I don't have any regrets anymore. I don't feel any guilt about it. I feel empowered actually that I had the opportunity to make those decisions, because I know there are a lot of women that don't have them for lots of reasons, whether it's by the time they found out,
Yeah.
having the access and opportunity. And so I do count it as a blessing that I was able to make those decisions.
Yeah. So you found out you had cancer, you did a double mastectomy, had peace with it. Did you have to do strong chemo again and the radiation treatments?
So I didn't have to do radiation because I've done the mastectomy. I did have to do chemo. Not as strong, but still strong. I mean, they still considered me young at that time. Um, and they were saying like, um, if I didn't make a lot of these decisions, because everything was based in, it's so funny, even the first time they said, because of the radiation I had and where I had it, may not be able to have children, but God, right?
Mm.
So I had these children, and then the second time they were saying, "You may not, if you don't make these decisions and have this chemo, you may not get to see your kids make it to elementary school." And now they're in high school, taller than me. Um, and so, yes, I went through the chemotherapy, and then, and I was also blessed, and I have to say this because everybody is not able to do it. I was able to take time off.
Let's speak on it because I think it is so. First of all, the fact that you were able to do it is truly a blessing. And not that you were just able to do it, but you actually did it. Because I feel like some people are able to do it, but they don't choose to do it for whatever reason, right? We have these programmings about how we have to show up, this strong black woman trope, all this kind of stuff that's keeping us from really taking care of ourselves and doing radical things to take care of ourselves. So how did you how did you make the decision to do, like, I'm gonna take this time?
Well, I didn't really have fully a choice, to be honest with you, because I left out because I needed, once I found out I was diagnosed, we had to move forward with chemotherapy, the mastectomy. So, I had to do all these things. So I couldn't go back to work. I'm an educator, so it just so happened that when a lot of these things were happening, it was towards the end of the school year anyway. So that made it, a little bit easier to make the decision because I would have
Okay.
been off in the summer.
Yep.
However, I didn't return back to work until October, because I ended up having to have a lot of surgeries, just going through the mastectomy and the rest of the reconstruction and a lot of other things that happened within my body. So I didn't go back until October.
Okay.
is when I went back. But this is where community showed up again. Um, Community in my personal life because, my kids were home at this time. And even though my mother-in-law lived with me, who are they coming looking for? They're coming to look for their mother. What do they want hugs? Well, I can't hug you right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so I had some family friends that would come and get my kids in the morning, go take them out for the day, bring them back
Mm.
like around nap time and give me that time to rest. I had
Yes.
people that set up food trains. Um, on my job to this day, I don't know who all these people were, but they donated all these days that I never missed a check. So financially, I will say people, if you don't have cancer insurance or sickness insurance, it's usually about $10 a month out your check. Get it
Get
because
it?
that helped with a lot of those co-pays. It helped pay some bills around here. Like all of that really
Yeah.
helped a lot.
Yeah.
And then the other piece was I joined the Cancer Wellness Center
Yeah.
at Wellstar.
Yeah.
And that was game changing for me. That was really game changing. Some of that was because I was just bored and I was just at home
Need to put your
and
mind.
someone had suggested it and they offered all these free services. They offered Pilates, they offered mindfulness classes, cooking classes,
Mhm.
but really they offered community.
Community. Mhm.
They
Yeah.
offered community. I can't remember not one person's name from there, but I remember feeling seen and feeling in community in a time where, as much as my family and friends loved me, there was just this part of me they couldn't
Yeah.
connect and understand.
Yeah. Girl, you are like so and I talked about this earlier, how literally I have 2 main points that I want to make sure I drive home with every podcast and that people leave with is that number one, your healing journey can be put into a greater context of your life, right? You can literally be diagnosed with illness, sickness, disease, cancer, what have you, and see it as an opportunity for larger transformation, personal growth, spiritual connection. Like it doesn't have to be the end. It literally can be the beginning of something great for your life. So I always like to hone in on that. And then the second one is the community piece that you have highlighted so beautifully. Healing was never meant to be done alone.
No.
And I feel like we live in a culture that's like really toxic around this hyper individualism, this pull yourself up by your bootstraps, do everything alone. And we're just we're never meant to do that. The very point of you just being in a computer, like you said, I might not remember not one of these people's names, but the feeling that you had of being seen, of being heard, of loved, right? It was therapeutic and healing for you in your journey. And so what I want to know is for you now on the other side of this, what does healing look like for you now? What does your community look like now? What does your self-care look like now? Because as we talked about earlier, you have this like, is it gonna come back? Is it gonna, so what does it look like for you now?
Once I returned back to work, right, because I had gone through the Cancer Wellness Center, I had this different paradigm of how I wanted to live my life.
Yeah.
And so when I first transitioned back to work, I felt like I was walking in someone else's life. And I was trying to figure out who is
It's
Kofi
Kofi.
now. And it
And
was
it
as
was
simple
simple
as when I went back to work, um, when I
when I
was
was teaching.
teaching, I would just be grinding on my planning time, you know.
Mhm.
Now I'm like, no, I need to go for a walk outside during planning time.
Yeah.
I need to take um I need to go take a breath because this is becoming overwhelming. And so it gave me these different tools. Um
Yeah.
and so that was first. Then I went on like this journey of trying to save my life.
Okay.
And I was like, I was real over the top with what I ate and and I wasn't living life.
Okay.
I was trying to save my life, but I wasn't living life. I
Mm.
wasn't living it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I look back, I still do it now. I was taking pictures of everything with my kids because I wanted them to remember me and, if something happened and what is that going to be? But I realized one day as I was looking through my pictures and all these places and things that we had been in, and I didn't see myself in the pictures. Why?
Mm.
Because I wasn't present. I'm
Right.
taking the picture all the time.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn now to be more present, and to be honest, it's taken me a while, and I always say healing is a journey. People think once the chemo is over and your hair grows back and you're good,
Yeah.
you're fine, and that's what I thought the first time.
Yeah.
But the second time, I have taken the time to heal in ways that I did not think I needed healing, emotional healing,
Mhm.
um, psychological healing. That's when I first probably started in therapy. Um, Physical healing. That's when I was like, oh, I need to start moving in some shape or
Yeah.
fashion. I need to drink more water. Now, I will say now, I try to live a life of an 80-20 rule.
Okay.
80% of the time, I want to do things that, would be healthy, someone might
Healthy,
consider healthy. And I always,
nourishing foods
right,
and
nourishing foods.
mm,
I love to walk. I love to do different things. But those 80% is not always, I mean, I love to have a good glass of wine and a nice cup of tea. Like there's two
yes.
things, right? And so I give myself the 20% so that I can be whole. The other thing is,
Mm.
I say I try to eat foods that give me life. And on some days, it just might be a donut.
I
And
know,
that's
right?
okay too.
That was me yesterday with a hot Cheeto. I was like, "I know. This is
That's
about me."
okay. But because what I realized was the more I told myself I couldn't, the more I wanted it, the more I created stress, which that caused disease as well,
Exactly. That
you
part.
know?
Yeah.
And so I just strive now in my life to live by the 80-20 rule, where before I probably lived by the 100%. I have to walk every single day for 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Well, if I could get it in 3 days a week, great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have hit my mark. I'm not a gym rat. I tried that. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on that and supplements and all those things. And I try to still do my supplements because I think they're important, but I
Mhm.
probably miss on Saturdays and Sundays because I'm just not that regimented.
Yeah.
But the biggest piece is what we try and live by in our household. We try and create a household of peace, and we try to live, laugh, and love.
Yeah.
And I think when I try to live by that mantra,
Yeah.
um, that's to me what healthy living is.
Yeah. That to me is what healthy living is. I mean, I think the fact that you went through the whole fanatical eating organic, clean, everything, and everybody and you and your family probably were miserable.
I went from, okay, I think we're gonna be vegan. I think we're gonna be vegetarian. Okay, it's just you gonna be vegan because my husband's like, I'm eating meat. Like it was crazy around here as my kids walking around with Twinkies around their mouth because my father-in-law gave them Twinkies and pork, bacon. Like it was crazy
Like,
around.
I think people, again, to highlight what you said, the peace part, the stress, taking note of where is my consciousness level in all of this? If I'm doing this out of fear, right, then that is causing that stress response, that fight, flight, all those neurochemicals that cause dis-ease in the first place are still there, even if it's towards healthy eating. So, what are we really doing here? What is healthy? What are we, what are we really doing?
Because I might be sitting here eating this spinach salad, but I'm stressing out about the fact that I really want this ice cream or
Exactly.
this, you know what I mean? And that's not helping. And I will say this last thing in this season that I'm in, I am really learning about rest.
Girl, she learning about rest, y'all.
I did not know I didn't live a life of rest even when I thought I was resting. I thought people who rested like that was being lazy. Imma be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm learning that rest isn't just about sleep. Rest is about margin.
Yeah.
Rest is about margin.
It is about margin, sis. Yes. Because people don't realize that a lot of times, like people going to sleep, they're not really fully getting in that deep rest and sleep because your mind is still churning about, I need to work. I need to fill my days up with work and productivity so I can feel like I'm valued, so I can sustain this lifestyle that I created. And that you're not getting rest even when
You're
you
not
sleep.
getting rest. Mm-mm. And so even in this season of my life of being an ed consultant, which I never thought I'm a 9 to 5, pick up my check on the 15th and 30th kind of chick.
Mhm, mhm.
And so as a consultant, like your time is in your control a lot more than it was when you're working for someone else. And I have to remind myself, it's okay to rest, sis.
Girl, I feel like what you have learned through your journey is like gold. Like what so I'll we'll say this last piece. What would you tell yourself
Mm.
if you were where you are now, right? What would you tell the old Kofi? You know, what would she need to know to make it through, her journeys? What advice would you give her? What gold nuggets would you say?
This is gonna be really interesting that I say this, I think. I would tell her 2 things. It's so funny. I would tell her, "Take more pictures,
More
but
pictures?
be in the pictures."
Oh yeah.
I would tell her to because in both times of cancer, I didn't take a lot of pictures of myself on purpose, I think it was.
This.
And so
Mm,
now when I wanna tell the story, I don't have many pictures of myself at that time.
yeah.
And I would have captured that more. But 2, I would say be in the pictures more and meaning be more present.
Yeah.
Be more present. The last thing would be, I would tell her, you will be amazed who's gonna show up for you.
The love, right? The level of love that you was poured out on you. Nobody can never tell you about the power of community, the power of being loved on, the power of being poured on. Like that is a lived experience that nobody can ever
Mm-mm.
take from
No
you.
one could ever say, yeah. So I thank you because you, as I told you, gave me the opportunity to um, remember my story and be reminded of why it's important. Because although I have healed through it, I still believe it has power for others. Um, and especially for women that look like
Yeah.
me, because now potentially I could be an Angelina Jolie for them.
Speak it, girl.
Yeah.
Speak it, girl. What, 20 something years later or 15 years later? It's crazy. It's crazy. Sophie, thank you so much for
Thank you.
talking with us, for your vulnerability, for sharing. I've learned so much, and you're pretty dope. I feel like we're
Ah,
to
thank
definitely
you.
stay connected for sure. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Don't forget to like, share, follow the show wherever you listen to your podcast. It's so important to share this with your loved ones and other women in your lives. This is how the message grows. This is how this show receives traction. Because in a world that's so cluttered with a whole bunch of nonsense and a whole bunch of trash talking, I feel like it's important to have our voices of love and light, be shared across the airways. So thank you so much. Thank you, Kofi. And I'll see you guys next time on the next episode of Meds and Magic. Thank you.